Hey VC, Big Star 1000, back with a new installment of Revolutions, an ongoing series in which I showcase things that I've been playing. And past week I've been on holidays, so I've had the time to play lots of things. Um, I prefer now to focus on things that I've been playing rather than new finds. I feel that just showing new finds is a tiny bit ostentatious at times. Oh, look, I've got this and I've got that and I bought this. Often show them without having listened to them. And I think I prefer this sort of discussion where, you've played things and you've thought about it. Just me. I mean, I'm not stopping people from doing new finds. I find them very entertaining to watch just the same. But I think from my own perspective, I probably enjoy doing revolutions more. And thank you for the great feedback. Last two videos, it's been fantastic. People were very lovely indeed. So without further ado, I've got 25 odd records there. So if I talk and talk, the video will go on forever. Here is an album that I've revisited a few times this week. It is the Fabulous Live. The name of this band is Talking Heads, by the Talking Heads, obviously. The CD is superior to the vinyl insofar as the CD contains two discs, like double the amount of material as the vinyl has. This is probably right up there, favorite, the best Talking Heads album. Really, if you don't have this, it's CD2 is just like a best of Talking Heads. Some of the versions that you see on there, for example, The Great Curve, which is the final song, which is also sort of my favorite Talking Heads song. That's the best version there is. I mean, it's absolutely knockout. The next is a record. It's a new find, a recent find rather, and it's a compilation by a fantastic label called Analog Africa, a German label specializing in obviously African recordings, and this is called Space Echo. The mystery behind the cosmic sound of Cabo Verde finally revealed. So Cabo Verde was a former Portuguese colony off the coast of Africa. And this is a comp of tunes, artists from that island. I mean, look, I'm one of these people. I'm never going to collect all these things, and I really appreciate that labels like Analog Africa do compilations because we just can't find those things really. I mean, they're just so scarce. But it's highly recommended comp, really beautifully done. And check out Analog Africa for more detail. This is superb, really very dynamic. It's got a real almost Cuban feel to it at times, Afro-Cuban sounds, but it's from Africa. Staying on Africa, this is a revisit. I've had this since it was re-released. It still has the sort of hype sticker on it. K. Frimpong and his Cubanos Fiestas. Oh, it's a good segue because he's talking about Afro-Cuban. This is Afrobeat, high life from Ghana, obviously. This guy called K. Frimpong, guitar player extraordinaire. And this was reissued by label from Minneapolis. I can't remember. Secret Stash. That's right, Secret Stash Records. A few years back, probably about 4 years ago, 2011. There you go. Which is where I got this fantastic African music. If you not heard K. Frimpong, and on a slightly not really related, but I'm thinking slightly related in the sense that it's funky. Here is an absolutely amazing sort of disco funk, soul. It's more like an EP It's got only like 4 or 5 songs. Unity, Sing It, Shout It, by Tony Aiken and Future 2000. It's a New York soul funk classic tune. I don't know how to describe it. So think of New York, late 1970s. Think, all these sort of bands that were going at the same time. All these actors, Talking Heads and Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five and Arthur Russell, and sort of this cross-pollinating of sounds. This is what it reminds me of for some reason. It's a fantastic tune. Yeah, New York disco funk from the late 70s. It's the best I can describe it as. Here is a record that was sent to me very generously by Jeff Greer. Jeff Greer, if you're watching, Schematics for a Blank Stare, sent me this record years ago. It's an English band called Diagonal. And it's sort of a neo-prog record, which I hadn't heard in a long time, but this is on Rise Above Records. I don't tend to show vinyl records very often but this one's interesting because it's like this kind of clear and black. It's a bizarre mix. Rise Above Records, and obviously, you know what you get with Rise Above Records. It's, as I said, neo-prog. I dig this. This is very good. It reminds you of things like, it's a little bit King Crimson-esque with some modern touches. I don't know. I mean, they're from Brighton, I think, but it's actually quite good. It's a nice record. I really don't know what to say about it. I like this record. It's cool. In a different register, here is a American jazz fusion record. The Fourth Way. Fourth Way were a band comprising these 4 dudes. One of them is Michael White, the legendary violin player, and Mick Knock, the New Zealand electric piano Fender Rhodes player. This is a Japanese press by the looks of it. The Fourth Way. Really killer jazz fusion. It's got a very summery vibe about it. I think I've picked the wrong time in the year to play this. We're in the midst of winter here in Australia, but I'm sure this would sound really a treat it's got nice, really summery flutes, it's all, slightly bossa nova-esque piano playing at times, and it's a very, very summery record. It's called The Sun and Moon Have Come Together. Well, it's, as I said, it's very summery. The next record is a modern electronic, what would you call it? It's almost like modern Kraftwerk, modern electronic records, played with real instruments. There's no real electronic textures on there. You've got lots of bass, violin, viola. The band is called Floating Points, and the album is called Lenya. This is from 2015 on Pluto Records, and the main guy, Floating Points, is basically a young dude from England called Sam Shepard, and this is it's a beautiful thing. It's like a modern talk record almost, in some way. It's almost like he's trying to take the spirit of Eden into a sort of a 2015 kind of context. As I said, it's the booklet. Drums, bass, violin, viola, cello, Fender Rhodes, ARP, Odyssey, Fender, Buchla, really lavish kind of electronic sounds, but made by real instruments. And yeah, a great electronic record, maybe one of the best records of last year. Okay, next, I've been replaying this fantastic folk, acid folk, if you like, record, Red Hash by Gary Higgins, which was reissued on Drag City a few years back. This is one of the best, yeah, singer-songwriter folk records that I can think of, on the same line as Nick Drake or things like Linda Perhacs or early Leonard Cohen, or to me, which are the sort of milestones of the sort of style of music. This is a slightly more psychedelic than the Nick Drake records, for example, which is really not psychedelic at all. It's a more pastoral kind of a thing. But all the songs are just brilliant. This guy was from somewhere east New Haven, Connecticut. Okay, Connecticut, that's right. This guy from Connecticut. Very, very interesting, in fact, stellar record. Brilliant. Highly recommended. Red Hash from '73, I think. And you can buy this on Drag City, and don't hesitate. Okay, I've also been playing this record this week. The Residents band from San Francisco, legendary band, seminal band, you would say. This is their first record, Meet the Residents, which also appears with this cover, which is the original one, I think. I've got a CD of this, and I've got this on record. What could you classify this as? Experimental, avant-garde, sand collage, sort of, at time a little music concrete, and I mean that if you want to classify this in a sort of a box, if you like, the closest thing you can think of when I listen to this is post-punk, even though this is from 1974, and it's nowhere near post-punk. Post-punk is post-78, but that's, I guess I classify it there with that sort of, and they were way ahead of their time. A label called Raft Records. Nobody knows what they look like. Obviously, you've heard of the Residents. If you haven't, just check them out. It's not for the faint-hearted, okay? If your universe is based on the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and Bob Dylan, this is not going to be very easy for you to access. I'm just warning you in advance. If your universe is Captain Beefheart, Frank Zappa, Ornette Coleman, Albert Ayler, then this will sound like pop music. So I'm going to talk about Raft Records a little more. Here is another album from Raft Records. This is a Swiss band called Yellow, and that's their debut album, Solid Pleasure. It's also on Raft Records. I'll just pull out the inner sleeve for you. Raft Records, San Francisco. So Raft Records, yeah, as I said, the Residents. This is a commercial album. The one that I've just showed you, Meet the Residents. This is not available, which is fantastic. Fingerprints is there. And then you've got other bands like Snake Finger, which I also have. Tuxedo Moon, which I also have. MX80 Sound, which I also love. And this band called Yellow. New wave pop, experimental pop, early 80s, 1980, fantastic record, really superb from side to side. So yeah, explore Raft Records if you have a minute. They're very cool. It's very cool. My favorite singer in the world, as you know already, is the mighty Serge Gainsbourg. And whilst Histoire de Melody Nelson is my favorite album by Gainsbourg, and that's no secret, I would say that this would be equal second, Love on the Beat. I love this record. It's just inspired by sort of early New York funk from the early 1980s, well, I was talking about Tony Aikens just before, so it's kind of the same line, you know, this sort of electric funk that you would get from the New York scene from that time. So this is inspired by it. Love and the Beat, Sorry Angel. I mean, this is a classic record in every way. From the sleeve, it's from 1984. It's record was got Larry Fast on synth. Larry Fast is Sinji, as you probably know, and lots of other people. Very cool. Changing register entirely. I was revisiting this Eddie Gale spiritual soul jazz record, fantastic album. This is a absolutely essential record if you like spiritual jazz. What can I say? There's a big band, Eddie Gale on trumpet. You have people like Elvin Jones on drums, and then you've got the Noble Gale singers. So they've got lots of vocals. As in every good spiritual jazz album, there is singing. People think jazz singing, yes, there is. It should be like that. If it's a spiritual jazz album, often there are vocals. Well, I'll stay on jazz. I've got a few more pieces here, which you might enjoy. Got a couple of records from a label called Cobblestone Records. I think affiliated to Muse, I think, something like, I'm not sure, don't quote me on it. And they're two good records. Well, one of them is good and the other one is just off the charts good. So this is Contrast by Neil Craig, which is largely a sort of piano Fender Rhodes dominated record. It has, the band's really good. I mean, this is from 1972. Obviously, this is probably an original press, I'm guessing. It's, as I said, some Cobblestone Records, which looks like this. And yeah, it's kind of a soul jazz album. There's 2 or 3 really great tracks. I couldn't say the whole album is brilliant, but overall, if you want to sample Kenya or Bacalao maybe, or even Help Yourself, good tracks, but some of them verge on a little bit cheesy and hokey. I don't know. I couldn't say this convinces me totally, but for the 2 or 3 tracks that are good, it's. I mean, if you find this cheap, as I did, you know, it's probably okay. However, this one is the bomb. Philosophy of the Spiritual. I got this last year, end of last year. Kind of was a kind of a blind buy. I saw it in a record store. It looked cool. The band, there's Chick Corea on keys, for instance, and I knew of Richard Davis. This is fantastic. It's a avant-garde post-bop jazz album. He plays bass with a bow for most of the. It's just great. I mean, it's got this sort of beautiful bowed approach. It starts with a song called Dear Old Stockholm, which is a Swedish folk song but turned into a jazz number. It sounds a little bit like a Jewish folk song at times with the because he plays the bass, but with as I said, double bass with a bow. So you have this sort of inflection, and then it turns into this really fantastic, you know, post-bop record. I mean, if you find this, don't hesitate. It's one of the best records in my jazz collection. I would say it really is. It's a winner all the way. Some more jazz here. Here is a fantastic CTI album. This is the California Concerts at the Hollywood Palladium, which basically is the CTI All Stars. You've got Stanley Turrentine, Freddie Hubbard, Ron Carter, Hubert Laws, George Benson, Johnny Hammond, Airto Moreira, and Billy Cobham. And probably has the best version of Red Clay you ever hear. I think it's better than the one on Red Clay. It's just scorching. This is a very very good record. If you see this, it probably will be cheap. It's really well worth getting. And it's, I know it's a live album, but you really can't tell. It's not like, you know, it sounds like a live record. It's dynamic enough that it sounds like a studio recording. If you're gonna get one Last Poets record, make it this one. Last Poets with Bernard Purdie, Delights of the Garden, jazz funk with a real sort of conscience. I mean, you know, it's Last Poets. After All, Susan Douglas, Original Press, blah blah blah. 77, and Bernard Purdie makes a big difference. I mean, contrary to most Last Poets records, which really are largely just a bit of drums and them speaking on top of it, which is they're basically the granddaddy of hip hop, them and Gil Scott-Heron. I mean, really. But this has got more instruments going, so it's got a more funky tone, yeah, and it's got bass, guitar, percussion, congas. So it's very very good album by the Last Poets, and it's very, as I said, it's very political, very black consciousness aware. Changing gears a bit, it's an album that I hadn't played for years, and I don't know why, because it's fantastic. This is Art Bear's Winter Songs. I guess they call this rock in opposition, which is kind of like jazz prog with really bizarre sort of avant-garde leanings, a little bit Canterbury prog as well, you know. So we've got Dagmar Krause, Fred Frith. It's basically Henry Cow, but with Dagmar Krause, the German singer. Who is on this? Fred Frith, Chris Cutler, Dagmar Krause. That's right. There you go. Art Bears. So if you like Henry Cow, things like that, I think in many ways this is better than Henry Cow. It's more, it's you know, it's more listenable, I think. This, in spite of Dagmar Krause's crazy vocals, it's a very very good album from 1970 something. Look it up. You've got the internet. Here is a lovely piece of atmospheric Australian post-punk. Not Drowning, Waving, Another Pond. Now I've just sent a copy of this to my good friend Chris for 127 Basket. He might show it in his next video, we never know. This is a Melbourne album through 1984. It's a band led by a guy called David Bridie, who is a piano player. And it's just a lovely record. It's really atmospheric, you know. Sometimes, you know, it's almost like a Smith meets John Hassel record, if that makes sense. If you can think of those two sort of influences going together. Another Pond, recorded in Melbourne in 1984. It's a piano-led kind of atmospheric post-punk. Well, since I'm talking about atmospheric and ambient, I've also pulled out my copy of Ambient 4 on Land, Brian Eno, which is a classic ambient record, basically. I mean, do I really need to talk about Brian Eno and his ambient period? As Bill Laswell on bass, Michael Brook on guitar. Yeah, it's a great record. Ambient 4 on Land from 1978, 1938. Released in 1980, recorded around 1978. Well, I've got a couple of Kraftwerk records that I want to talk about, so I'll just segue into Kraftwerk. I think over the past few months, probably past 6 to 8 months, my favorite band, without question, has been the band that I've gone back to the most. Has been Kraftwerk. Kraftwerk, um, the Beatles of electronic music. That's how you should. And this week I was listening to their first two records, Kraftwerk, uh, subtitles, which is on Philips, as you can see. Very, very good record. I highly recommend this. It's beautiful. Lots of organ and flutes. It's not the electronic Kraftwerk that you well know of, Autobahn and the Man Machine. It's a sort of transitional Kraftwerk, which was going into that direction. Instrumental music. There's no vocals on this. It's it's krautrock rock, really. I mean, it's Kraftwerk when they were a krautrock rock band, really, and this one is just an extension of it. Kraftwerk number two, but that's what I was listening to this week. Every week I listen to different Kraftwerk records, and this week these were the pick of the bunch. They're very good records, both of them. And here is another killer record. Harald Grosskopf, who is as you can see, a synth player, was in Tantric Dream. This is a reissue on Bureau B. I'd love to get an original of this, but I found a reissue which was really decently priced, and I thought, it sounds really good. Am I going to pay another $50 or more for an OG? Probably not. This sounds really terrific. Bureau B, great reissue. Harald Grosskopf. Berlin School. If you like Klaus Schulze, if you like Tangerine Dream, I think in some ways, just because it's this kind of one-off record, it's a bit more punchy than a lot of the Tangerine Dream things that you hear. I'm not saying it's better than Tangerine Dream, but it's got more of a sort of direct, punchy approach. Almost there, people. If you want to switch off, you can switch off. I'll stay with electronic music. Here is a classic, and I say this a lot, but really, you must believe me. This is an absolute essential French electronic music record, progressive electronic music. This is Bernard Sajner, Some Deaths Take Forever, with its Amnesty International logo at the front, which was record dedicated to Amnesty International. Bernard Sajner, French electronic musician. He was in, a couple of classic French progressive electronic bands of the time. You can look him up. I'm just talking too much at the moment. This is pulsating, compelling, gripping electronic music with, obviously lots of synths and all that, and some guitar. Think Helden, think Richard Pinas, think Paul, think this. Really, they're not so far away from one another in terms of what they sound like. And that's from I like to give you dates sometimes. This is from 1970, I don't know, it doesn't say, late 70s. In a completely different register here is a sort of a post-rocky indie rock record. Karate is the band, Karate. The record is called In Place of Real Insight. Once upon a time, about 5 or 6 years ago, when I was starting in the VC, I made a series called Obscure Classics, and this is one of the records that I talked up, and I still believe it's an obscure classic. It is a wonderful record, from, as you can see, released in Chicago. I think Tortoise comes to mind when I think of this. Um, and it's got this indie sound, this, you know, um, sort of American indie sound, but it's a bit slintish, a bit Tortoise-ish, esque, without being a post-rock record. It's got the attitude, but not the full sound. It's got vocals all the way through. So think maybe Slint or Tortoise meets, something like Dinosaur Jr. meets, a bit of Pixies, and you get sort of Karate. But probably not as good as all those bands, but good nonetheless. Good nonetheless. Face of Real Insight from 1992. Here is a revisit. Bought this years ago, and I didn't know what it sounded like anymore. Galliard. This is a UK prog band, which is very much axed on horn rock prog. Think Blood, Sweat and Tears, but with a more proggy kind of outlook. Lots of yes, jazz rock from England from the early 70s. Galliard. Good record. That's it. Again, not exactly mind blowing, but a good record. I couldn't remember what it sounded like, and when I played it, this is good. And finally, a classic record, Mezzanine, Massive Attack, one of my favorite bands. Nothing else to say about this other than if you don't have it, I would strongly encourage you to get this. You can get this reissue still. It's a wonderful album. I'm not gonna Massive Attack, for goodness sake. If you haven't heard of them, do something about it. Okay, BC. Thanks a lot, and until next time.